We're back, we're naked, and we're ready to party.
You're not really naked, are you?
Not physically, but here on the Naked Party Time podcast, we get real and raw about life, leadership, and love. So what do you say? Are you ready to get naked?
Let's do it.
Your level of vulnerability will determine your level of victory. Let me say that again. Your level of vulnerability will determine your level of victory. That's part of what we're talking about on this month's episode. So welcome back, or welcome for the very first time to the Naked Party Time podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello to you guys there. We're here and we get real and raw about life, leadership, and love. My name is Jeff Manis. I'll be your host. And I'm joined, as I always am, by my bestie for the resty, my one and only, my birthday babe.
Ooh.
I turned 50 this week. My dream within a dream. It's a shout out to Princess Bride fans. My wife, my partner, and my queen, Sabrina. How are you doing today, Sabrina?
I am doing very good.
Hey, all right, we mixed it up. I struggled with some new names for you this week. Just recently, you started calling me something. What is it that you call me?
Oogly googly bear.
And everybody cringes. We need to explain that is a joke.
Yes, I don't really call you
Don't really call me that. Our kids were getting on to you because the last couple of years you have started calling me dad. Not like when the kids are around referencing me as dad. When only me and you are together, you'll call me dad. And we all think it's weird. And so they were asking you, don't you have a pet name for dad? And so you started calling me Oogly Googly Bear.
The reason why I got into the habit of calling you dad, I was thinking about this. For 23 years, I've referenced you as dad to 4 little people that I have kept their schedules or let them know what dad is doing, or dad said this, or dad wants this, or dad needs this. It just has become a habit. And now...
Yeah, you'll call me dad at the grocery store, just me and you there.
Because
hey, Dad.
23 years is a long time to reference somebody.
I don't call you mom.
I know, but if you look back at our parenting, I've had to do more as far as referencing you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do enough.
No, that's not what I mean. Like with their schedules and your schedule, and dad's got this going on, like... I don't know. Yep. It's just become a habit. So now I call you Oogly Googly Bear.
Yep. And let it be known again, you don't really call me that.
No.
That would be even weirder.
I probably call you Babe more than anything else.
We just now use that to annoy our children, which we enjoy doing.
Yes.
And probably people probably have no desire to know what I started calling you as well. But I'll share it anyway. And I only use this to gross out our kids, but I've been calling you Sweet Cheeks.
It's better than what you have teased me with calling me, because as Jada says, it gives me the ick.
So I couldn't put that into the introduction without an explanation, the Sweet Cheeks thing or Oogly Googly Bear. So I did want to include that in there just for our kids.
Now people might start calling you Oogly
That's true.
Googly Bear.
They might.
You better answer if you hear
right.
that in church. Someone yells, Oogly Googly Bear.
I did call you my birthday babe. I turned 50 this week. How crazy is that?
You finally made it to 50. I've been telling you, you're almost 50
since
for
I turned
like
45.
a decade.
Yeah, now you can't say I'm almost 50.
Yeah, but now you're almost 60.
Yeah, here we go. I'm going to hear that for another 10 years, right?
Yep.
We were talking about at dinner the other night, celebrating my birthday, that it's so weird. Well, the kids were talking about how weird it is that I'm 50. I said, but think about, like, my grandmother's still alive. It's our kids' great-grandmother. Mm-hmm. She's 101. Well, if I make it to 100, I said, how weird is it that she has a grandson who's 50? As we had our 10-month-old and our 2-month-old or 1-month-old sitting at the table with us.
Yeah.
So I looked at Dakota, who's going to be a year in September. I said, if I make it to 100, Dakota will be 50.
Yeah, which is... So, yeah.
That's crazy.
He might have children.
Yeah.
Which could be 25 at the time.
Yeah, he
or
could
whatever.
Have grandkids.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So now I have a goal to make it to 100 and see Dakota and Baker
because
turn 50.
with Imogene, we have 5 generations that she can see right now. Her generation, your dad, you, Mariah, Dakota.
It's amazing. And Baker.
And Baker, and I'm like, I want to see 5 generations.
It's amazing.
That is awesome.
We've known each other for 33 years.
Yeah, since I was 14.
We've been together for 32, married for 27.
I don't know what life is like without you, basically.
Well, it's not nearly as good, I can tell you that. Okay, we are all about being real and raw, as we have displayed today. And we want to do that around life, leadership, and love. Today, in episode 58, we're going to focus a bit on the leadership side as we talk about getting an ATV for culture. The title of this episode is Who Wants an ATV?
Woo-hoo.
Raise your hand if you want an ATV. To which I would say, who doesn't want an ATV?
Yeah.
Like an all-terrain vehicle. You may not want one, Sabrina, because you are not really on the...
Well, if I was in control of it, I could control
the
speed.
Go. You're not really in a... But if you were driving, why would you need an ATV? That's what I would say, because you'd be going like 5 miles an hour.
Yeah, but if I was in control, then I could determine where it was going or not. When I'm on the back of one with you, I'm out of control and scared.
ATVs are a blast. I actually flipped a Razor ATV, one of those drivable ones, with our daughter and her best friend in it, and Jada.
And scarred them.
And scarred them for life. But ATVs are awesome. But I'm not talking about an actual ATV, although that would be amazing. And we probably just lost a few listeners because we're not talking about ATVs. And we are not giving it away an ATV today, even though it's called Who Wants an ATV? And when I say culture, an ATV for culture, I'm not really talking about like culture in general, like the culture of our country. I'm talking about the culture of a small group, a workplace, or a team. And the ATV we're talking about is an all-terrain vehicle for a safe and honest culture that will foster victory. Remember at the beginning I said your level of vulnerability will determine your level of victory. But this is going to be a very different podcast than we would normally do. Several months ago, I did a lesson with our staff called ATV Culture. Pastor Ryan, our discipleship pastor, asked me to rework the lesson for his small group leaders for some small group training. So here in a moment, we're going to make a transition into the lesson, and we'll be speaking as if we are speaking to the small group leaders at the Harbor, but we're giving all of our podcast listeners an inside look as well. And you probably need to go, this is a real raw moment here on the podcast. Turn the vacuum off, and I'll just keep on going here. Okay. If you want to listen to another episode we did on this subject, you can go back to episode 9 of the podcast, where we did a deep dive into this as well. ATV is in the title of that podcast as well. This is an updated version and really geared specifically for our leadership situation here at the Harbor. So again, if you're listening to the podcast, we're going to make a weird transition here into the lesson that we'll be sharing, and then we'll make a weird transition back to the podcast when we are done, and we'll probably share a few more thoughts that we won't get into on the lesson for our small group leaders. Sabrina, any thoughts, questions, or concerns before we get going?
No, the only thought I have is it doesn't all start with the same letter. Are you sure this is okay material?
It's an acrostic, though.
Oh, so that counts.
Yeah, an acrostic is an acceptable alternative to alliteration.
Okay, but alliteration is your preference.
It is a preference. The Lord is more present in alliteration.
I see.
But he's just as present with an acrostic. Thanks for looking out for me.
Yeah, it was just an observation I had.
Acrostics are an acceptable form.
Okay.
In my mind. It satisfies the sickness within me.
Your eye won't be twitching.
It won't be twitching. No. Once we do get going, we need to keep going. So this is going to be officially shared with our small group leaders at the training and before the season begins. Are you nervous?
I am a little nervous. It does feel a little bit more pressure.
Yeah.
Than normal.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Here we go. Your level of vulnerability will determine your level of victory. Let me say that again. Your level of vulnerability will determine your level of victory. Hello to all of our small group leaders at the harbor, and welcome to our makeshift podcast studio here in our home where we record a monthly podcast together. Pastor Jeff here, along with my wife, Sabrina. If you've not ever met her, here she is. You usually see her in second service on the front row on Sunday.
Or you'll hear me.
Or you'll
on the
hear
second
you
row.
laughing or saying amen, or that's good.
Yes.
Earlier this year, I walked with our staff through a beefed up version of the lesson I'm going to share with you. Pastor Ryan asked if I could share a form of that lesson with you, our small group leaders. And here we are again in our makeshift studio. Let me go back to the line I started with. Your level of vulnerability will determine your level of victory. But this is where we need some help in understanding how vulnerable should I be? To whom should I be vulnerable? And what should I expect from others when it comes to vulnerability? In my opinion, there are 3 levels to our vulnerability. These levels serve as an all-terrain vehicle for navigating a safe and honest culture that will help to foster victory. As small group leaders, I know that's what your heart is. You want to provide a culture in your groups that is safe and honest. I know that's your desire, or you would not be a small group leader. But what's that really look like?
Yeah.
What should our expectations be? Well, this all-terrain vehicle has an abbreviation, right? An all-terrain vehicle has an abbreviation, and it's what? ATV. No. ATV is the abbreviation. So I call this the ATV of a safe, honest, and victorious culture. Sabrina, what are the 3 parts of this ATV?
Authentic, transparent, and
vulnerable. Why did I say vulnerable?
Because I can't say it.
Because Sabrina can't say it.
Listen, we practiced like 20 times before we started this.
And you still can't say it.
No, I can't get my brain and my mouth to work the right way.
I'll say it for you. Authentic, transparent, and vulnerable. Specifically, we need to be authentic with everyone, transparent with some, and vulnerable to someone.
Yeah, that's good.
Let me say that again. Authentic with everyone, transparent with some, and vulnerable to someone. This is so important for the culture of our small groups. Authentic with everyone, transparent with some, and vulnerable to someone. So let's start with the first one. What is it again, Sabrina?
Authentic with everyone.
If we want to cultivate a culture that is safe, honest, and fosters victory in our lives, we have to be a people who are authentic with everyone.
Yeah.
But we all struggle with this one. We all struggle with this. One of the most common questions people ask is, how are you doing? Or how are things going? And Sabrina, what's one of the most common answers we give as human beings?
Good, doing good.
Yep, everything's good.
Yeah. just staying busy, just doing all the things.
Yep.
Like,
even when things aren't good, we typically say,
yeah.
How you doing? Good. We just typically say that.
Yeah.
Why do we do that?
For one, I think it's a habit that we have created. And another reason, we're trying to project this image. And I think social media has played into this because we're only showing our highlight reel and we're looking at somebody else's highlight reel and we're like, well, they're doing good. So I guess I'm doing good because I can't really show somebody what's going on because I'm going to get judged for that. Like, I can only imagine all the things the enemy says to us. When we want to go past that doing good, the enemy is like, they're going to judge you, shut you down. And so it's just easier to be like, good, everything's good. You walk off, you never talk to that person again, and you go back into your situation.
So we want to project something that is not true, or we just don't want to bother somebody with our problems, or we don't want to share the messy details of our life, or maybe we don't feel safe to say that we're not doing good. Now, being authentic does not mean I announce all the details of all my struggles to anyone who asks me how I'm doing. It just means I do my best not to portray the opposite.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if someone asks how things are going, if things are not going well in a specific area of my life, I can express that. I can say, I'm doing okay. That's honest.
Yeah.
Or I'm great in some areas, but I've got some difficulties in others. And then you don't have to say anything else.
Yeah.
That's being authentic. When it comes down to it, being authentic with everyone is just about being the real you. Come as you are.
Yeah.
It's one of our core values here at the Harbor. It's making sure not to project something or project someone that you aren't. The reality is, and this is huge, huge, huge for you, our small group leaders, it isn't always safe to be completely vulnerable with someone.
Right.
It's not always safe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And we have to not be on guard, but there is a piece where you want to protect yourself, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Now, we don't want to build our walls so high that nobody is in them, but there is a little bit of protection, and as long as you're letting somebody in, I think that's okay.
Yep.
And if you say to someone, I'm not doing okay, and they press it and you're not comfortable, just say, I'm not really comfortable sharing that right now, but if you wanted to go have coffee with them, there's so many different ways you can be authentic and be okay with not sharing with that person. Yeah. Nobody says you have to do that. And if that person is not okay with it, that's on them. Their reaction doesn't reflect you.
So we need to be authentic with everyone, the real me. But I can be the real me to everyone without revealing every detail about me to them at the same time. And this leads to the second layer of vulnerability. Be authentic with everyone. Sabrina, what's the next one?
Be transparent with some.
Yeah. Be transparent with some. It's one level deeper in the ATV of a safe, honest, and victorious culture. Once we are truly living an authentic life with everyone, this one will more naturally happen.
Right.
If I'm truly being authentic, well, now I can be transparent with some. And notice, we're not down to the deepest level yet. You shouldn't be transparent with everyone.
Right.
But you should with some. You should. Transparency requires trust. So this can't be just anyone. And transparency goes a step farther than authenticity. Authentic might acknowledge that something is off in my life, but transparency will acknowledge what area of life that is. That's now going one step further.
Yeah, that's good.
So it might be, hey, how are you doing? And you're like, man, I'm not doing that great. I'm kind of struggling financially right now. Or I'm in conflict with a friend, or there's some work issues that are weighing me down. Or when it's appropriate, it could be as specific as something like, I'm really struggling with remaining pure in my thought life right now. Or again, whatever it is, transparency goes one level deeper and pulls the layer back a little bit more.
Right. And you really have to determine with every single person which ATV you're going to reveal to that person. And so you need to ask Jesus for wisdom and discernment on that, because we will get hurt. We have been hurt. And so we do have to be discerning in that, and we need God's wisdom. And that's wise of you to seek and ask God for wisdom and discernment.
So at this level, no details are really shared. But again, you've peeled back the layer. And this is only done with the people that you trust. With some, not with everyone.
Right.
Authentic with everyone. Being the real me all the time as best I can. Not projecting something that I'm not or pretending to be better than I am. And then transparent with some should be a select group of people that they have earned your trust, which takes time. And that's okay. To our small group leaders, you don't have to be fully transparent on day one of your new group or with new people. And please, 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 do not expect anyone in your group to get to this point quickly. It takes time. Give them time. I don't ever want someone in any of our small groups to feel like they are required to be at this level in the group that they are attending. Now, please understand, we do want to create the kind of culture where this does happen. But I don't want to rush or force or guilt someone into this level.
Right.
And I think that often happens, especially in the church.
Right.
You don't have to be transparent on day one, but to our small group leaders, there should be a day where you are transparent with some, especially in our groups.
Right. And I think sometimes it will take the small group leader taking the first step of transparency and leading the way in that. And I also think here, it's okay for there to be silence in your small group. When you ask a intimate question and there is silence, don't call anybody out. Let people respond if they're ready. And if they're not ready and you don't have anything you want to share, then just move on. Yeah. It doesn't mean you failed. It just means people aren't ready, and that should be okay. I think as the leader, we're so scared of nobody answering the question or getting through all the questions or there being silence, and silence is okay. Yeah. And we don't have to fill every area and just move on. Because for someone who's introverted, I don't ever want to be called out. I can tell you that. But I'm okay with silence because everybody's also a different processor. And some people need longer to think. And some people can process quickly and answer. So there's some patience needed on the small group leader level.
Yeah, it's good. So authentic with everyone, transparent with some, and the last one is, I'll say it.
Yeah, thanks.
Vulnerable with someone. Vulnerable with someone. I say it this way. Not everyone should know everything about you, but someone should.
Right.
I'll say that again. Not everyone should know everything about you, but someone should.
Right.
If you're married, you need to be vulnerable with your spouse. But you also need someone else besides your spouse.
Right.
Someone of the same sex to be vulnerable with as well. What Scripture would call a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Mm-hmm. Someone who can and does know all of the best parts and all of the worst parts about you, but they still choose to stand with you.
Right. Right.
That is the vulnerable relationship that you need. Someone that can truly hold you accountable, to lovingly correct you. This layer of vulnerability goes that final step and requires a level of trust that is far beyond authenticity and transparency. To our group leaders, if you have a mixed gender group, you may not ever fully reach this level with everyone in your group.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
You don't need to expect that, especially in our mixed gender groups. I do not believe that we should be pressing vulnerability from anyone in our groups or our teams. Again, we do want to create the kind of culture where this is safe and allowed and accepted to be vulnerable, but I don't want anyone feeling like they have to be vulnerable in their group. In fact, there are some levels of vulnerability, especially in a mixed gender group, that just wouldn't be appropriate.
Right.
There are parts of my life and parts of your life that should be reserved only for a few select group of people. Mm-hmm. And please understand, this is not about being secretive.
Right.
It's about being selective. Mm-hmm. It's about being private. And there is a difference between secrecy and privacy.
Right.
That is a big, big deal. I actually believe that if we expect vulnerability out of people, especially if we demand it, we will end up creating people who feel unsafe in our groups and our teams. Vulnerability, small group leaders, takes time. Lots of time and lots of trust. And there may be some people who have vulnerable relationships outside of your group.
That's good.
That they never become vulnerable in your group. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
We want the culture to be safe enough to do it, but not demand it from people in our groups.
Well, and don't know who's been hurt because they've shared. And so our expectations, I think, have to be lowered.
Yeah.
Because when you have freedom in something, you desire freedom for everybody, or you want everybody to be on the same level. And it's just not, our journeys are all so different in how we work. And it's okay. I think as leaders, we have to be more accepting and walking with the people where they are at, not where we want them to be, but where they're at. And it's going to be at all different levels, which makes being a group leader challenging, but also you don't always know what you're walking into. Yeah. So then it makes it interesting. Yep. And you just, it helps you also grow as a leader because you're walking with so many different people in their lives. And so you also have to look internally and make sure that you're doing all the things.
Yep. So authentic with everyone, transparent with some, which is where I think most small groups live.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah.
Transparency, and vulnerable with someone. Not everyone should know everything about you, but someone should. And so I would ask, who is your someone? Like small group leaders, who is your someone? And I'll share mine. I have two. My twin brother, Jeremy, and my best friend, Todd. I share everything with them. Everything. And they ask me everything. I mean, we do that to each other.
Yeah.
We will ask each other very vulnerable, personal questions about our spiritual lives, emotional lives, our relational lives. Like, we get very serious about what we share with and ask from each other. And I have told both Todd and Jeremy that at any time, if they feel like our board of directors needs to know something about me, I said, I'm asking you to tell them.
Yeah.
I want and need that kind of accountability.
Yeah.
And I've told our board and our executive pastor the same thing in reverse. And I've given Todd and Jeremy and our executive pastor phone numbers to share. I've said, if at any time you feel like there is something off in me, I need you to reach out to Jeremy and Todd and ask them, how is Jeff doing? Like, I'm sensing this. Do you know of something? Because I don't want there to be any area where the enemy might find a wedge in my life.
That's good.
So again, I would ask, who is your someone? And you don't have to tell me who it is. You don't have to tell Ryan who it is. I just know how valuable it is to have someone that you can be vulnerable with. Any further last thoughts for our group leaders?
No, I think that's a great training as we begin this new small group season. And we all need the reminder that how we're walking with God's people is very different. Every story is different, and that we have to be patient, and we can't be the Holy Spirit. And sometimes we have to lead the way, and just trust that God will help us know when that is.
All right. To all of you group leaders, thank you so much for what you guys are doing. You are leading the way in restoring those who are battered, refueling the weary, and returning to change the world. What you are doing truly is changing the world one life at a time. And we love you guys and are so thankful for what you're doing. Probably was a bit longer than Ryan wanted, but hopefully this is helpful for him and for all of you as well. Be authentic, promote transparency, and when appropriate, be vulnerable and allow people, don't expect it, but allow people to be vulnerable in your groups as well. You guys are awesome. Hope you have an amazing small group season. We're praying for you. We'll see you. All right. That was a look inside of some small group leader training at the Harbor, but it applies to all of us in life. Any final words about what we talked about, Sabrina?
No, I think that's a good reminder for me, as well as my small group will be starting next month. And so I really liked all that.
And we personally have an amazing small group. Our small group leaders, Justin and Rebecca Rhodes, do really well with this. Especially in leading the way and being vulnerable.
For sure. They definitely lead the way.
They pave the way in being authentic, transparent, and vulnerable. All three levels. And they do a really good job of allowing our group as well to just be where they're at. Especially, they've allowed the pastor the senior pastor and his wife into their group, which takes a massive amount of openness and trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've allowed us to be who we are, and it's been great for us to be in a group.
Yeah. Yeah. I've loved it. And then I lead my own small group of women, and there is a difference when you're with all the same gender versus our couples small group. And so like the women in my couple small group, we have our own text string, and I think the men have one, and then we all have one together. And so there's still safety in there, but then like if there's something I don't want a man to know, I have the safety of these women and the safety of the women that I lead on my own. And it is a lot of discernment that we need, and it's also okay to not share everything with your small group. Like just because you're in a small group doesn't mean it's the only place you can share that stuff. You are allowed to have people outside of your small group, and it's probably healthy to have both. Yeah. Like there's not one way to do this or one way to have friends. Like let God design that for you. Yep.
Again, like I said in the training, we do want our small groups to be a safe place to be fully vulnerable.
Yes.
But that doesn't have to be the place where you are vulnerable.
It doesn't have to be the only place.
Or even the place.
Yeah.
If you don't feel, again, I'm not saying that you feel like that group's going to attack you if you share something. Right. But there might be parts of your life that at this season are better shared with that someone in your life. Right. Not everyone in your group. Right. And that's okay. Yeah. So, this is it's just like you said, a great reminder for us, especially on that. I think the hardest one to be consistent at is the authentic one.
Yeah,
because you get in that habit of just saying, "Hey, how are you doing? Good." And again, there's sometimes legitimate reasons why you said good, right? But we're not really good, right, at projecting our true selves to everyone.
Yeah. And so that might be the one we need to practice. Yeah. I know I've over the last few years, I've tried to say I'm doing okay when I was doing okay.
And that's what I would say too. I've gotten better at saying I'm doing okay. Yeah. Or I've actually said, man, the line I use in the training. In some, I've said this, man, in some places I'm doing really good, in others it's not great. Yeah. And then
it doesn't have to go further than that unless you want it to. Even if the person pursues it, you don't have to go further. Yep. You can tell them that's as far as I want to go right now. Yeah. And that should be okay.
Yep. And it's something I didn't add in the training. I said this to the staff, that with that authentic piece, even with the transparent piece, if things aren't going well and someone asks me, like someone at the lobby of the church, hey, how are things going? I can say, man, it's some areas are really good, some areas are not, but I have somebody in my life who I'm talking to about it. Yeah. So now you've been authentic and you've let them know I've got somebody. Yeah. Like I'm not doing great, but I have somebody in my life who I'm sharing that with. Yeah. It only added a few words, but it let that person know, hey, I'm taken care of. Right. So they don't have to press now.
Right. But they know how to pray. Yeah. So, I mean, prayer is our best weapon. It should be also our first weapon. Yep. And it's usually our last weapon. And so I think sometimes when people share things, I don't always have to know what's behind that okay. But now I can know, you know what? I might pray extra for them this week because I could tell there's something there, but I didn't feel the door open for me to press. And I'm not going to force the door open. That's Jesus's job. So it still gives us enough insight. And it's always, depending on your relationship, you can always text that person later and say, hey, I've been praying for you. I hope you're doing okay. Yep. Hope things are looking better. Yep. And they can determine if you're safe or not. And that's not a reflection on you. It's everybody's in a different spot. And I just think, and I have been guilty of this in the past, I'm trying to be better at trying not to be the Holy Spirit and like, I need to fix them. I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. Well, that's not always my position.
Yeah.
It's not always what Jesus wants me to do.
And if somebody is transparent, which now then they share another layer, you could even further get specific with your prayers. So if somebody says, man, I'm not doing great, like I'm just having some struggles in my marriage right now.
Yeah.
Again, that could be a billion things.
Right.
We don't have to know. But now you know, or if it was said to me, I'm ramping up my prayers for their marriage.
Right.
Now I'm praying specifically. I know there's something going on in their marriage that's not great. I'm going to pray for that.
Yeah.
And we can even say, hey, if you don't have anybody to talk to, I'm available if you want to.
Yes, I've said that before to people.
And then it's like, say, they don't have to.
Yeah. And
I don't have to be offended if they don't.
Right.
But I've made myself available. If you ever need to talk, I'm here.
Yeah.
And that then just gives them the chance. It puts the ball in their court.
Right.
Hopefully we all need that someone.
Right.
But if they need someone to talk to, we've made ourselves available. It's part of it really is creating an ATV culture. Authentic, transparent, vulnerable. 3 levels.
Yeah.
We should always be trying to live in those 3 levels down to that bottom one with someone.
Yeah.
Or your someone might be 2 or 3 people.
Right.
But it is not healthy to be vulnerable to everyone.
Right.
It's just not. Like there's parts of our lives not everyone should know.
Yeah.
And it's, again, not hiding something. It's just being selective.
Right.
It's healthy.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Lord willing, we'll be back next month with another episode. I already have the idea.
Whoa.
Not even shared it with you yet.
I'm like, tell me what it is.
We're gonna do another leadership one. So
okay.
It's gonna be tied to something else that I taught our staff earlier this year, but it goes right along with this, and I think it applies to families, it applies to workplaces, it applies to friend groups, and so I'm looking forward to diving into that next time.
I'm looking forward to finding out.
Yep. You should come up with a podcast idea. That would be great as well. And let you lead the way. You could write the script and everything.
I don't know about that.
It could be a podcast about vulnerability.
I can't say the dang word, okay? Stop it.
Okay, let's just for our podcast. We didn't do it on the training. Just for the podcast, let's try to say it. Try to say it. We're being real and raw.
I think I overthink. It's the L. In the N. Those are the 2 letters. I overthink it.
But you get that part. It's the
vulnerable. I want to say that L so clearly. But you say it.
Vulnerable.
Was that closer?
It's closer, but you can see the struggle on your face, which is what makes it so funny. You're cute.
Oh.
Okay, if you do have any podcast ideas or suggestions, any questions or comments, you can email my assistant Janice at hello@jeffmanis.com. Sabrina, why don't we end with our marriage mission? We are united in Christ, unstoppable with Christ, and unbreakable because of Christ. Now it's time for you to go get naked
and party.
We'll see you on the other side. You've been listening to the Naked Party Time podcast. We hope that this has helped you be more real and raw in your life, leadership, or your love. Please like, rate, review, and comment wherever you see the podcast posted. We are so thankful that you are listening.